Okay, so third time is the charm, maybe. This is my third time attempting to start this live stream. Or it's not a live stream, actually, because my iPad does not meet the requirements to do so. So, yeah. So I'm here, and I've been led, divinely guided, I guess you can say, to come on today and just talk about a few things. So there is a lot going on in the planet currently. A lot of people have felt these energies and felt the shift and felt the just everything that's going on as well as in addition to being, going through an awakening. So as my first sort of video that I've recorded in a while, because I did record some videos in 2014, 2015, and I never really continued with them. So while I'm not really sure still what my message is exactly and what I'm supposed to be doing, I know that it's important for me to get on and talk about some things. So, and if this comes out looking weird, like I'm using the iPad, I've not recorded ever a video on YouTube. Like I used to use my phone and then I would just upload it. But I'm like, I'd rather just record it through the YouTube and then have, the YouTube like put it there, versus having to like upload it and take up storage space. I'm having phone issues. Hopefully now that we're we're in the Mercury retrograde shadow period, but now that we're out of full-blown Mercury retrograde, hopefully technological issues will start to improve. So, I've taken notes. Very distractible today. So, I guess I just wanted to talk about my awakening process. So I think my awakening really, and this isn't even going to be fully like this isn't going to be a discussion about the entire process. Because while I'm still processing through it and I'm still discovering what my message is meant to be, I think that it's important to share as I'm being led to share. So, I really think that my whole awakening started in 2016, I guess. It would be 2016. Suddenly out of nowhere developed an anxiety, panic attack disorder. And I'd always sort of had social anxiety, and I'd had anxiety, mainly social, but it was something that I just kind of, like, I would self-medicate and drink a lot and smoke weed and just to try to calm myself down because it was just so intense. And I'm now realizing that it's like, oh, okay, like you were having these emotions because I was probably picking up on the emotions of other people. So it's like, okay, like, is this mine? Is this someone else's? So, but I never, with all the anxiety that I'd had in my life, I never had panic attacks before. I never had one before. So I had my first panic attack in August. I think it was around a full moon. I'm pretty sure. I don't know what this iPad is doing. Once again, I apologize if this video comes out looking weird. I do not know what this video is going to look like when I'm done recording it. I have no idea what's going to happen with this video, like how it's going to turn up. So maybe that's better. Put it against a wall. So
I'm pretty sure it was around the full moon. And I remember looking at the full moon in the sky and being like, what are you trying to tell me? Like, what is going on? Like, this is just insane. And my first panic attack, I was at work. So I was working, living in Minnesota at the time, working at a resort. And, I got to work and my heart rate was just like insane. And I never had a panic attack before. So, I drank several cups of coffee that morning. Nothing out of the ordinary. And then I took like some sort of a pain pill, not like a prescription, but like an Advil or Tylenol or something like that, because I was having a headache. So I get to work and I'm like, why? Like, I was starting, the shaking part of it. And I'm like, okay, I don't know why. Like, usually I could get myself out of that place and just be like, okay, like, just calm down. Like, you're fine. So there were seashells. Where's my seashell? It's over there. But one of those giant, okay, I will get it. I will get it and show everyone. Okay. So one of these, like, giant shells, okay? So the resort had a bunch of these lying around. And I legitimately went and picked up 2 of them because, apparently it's your blood pressure, but I'm like, oh, it's the ocean. And it's calming to me. Like, I'm aware that it's not actually the ocean, but that's what I like to think of it as. And the ocean is very calming for me. So I legitimately grabbed 2. I don't even have 2 to give a visual reference. I'll use my shoe, I guess. I had a seashell on each ear, like this. And I went and hid myself in a room where there was no one, and had these seashells on my ears. And I was laying down and I was like, just calm down, like focus on your breathing, calm down, calm down, calm down. So it didn't work. So I'm like, okay, well, like, I'm already late for work. Like, I have to go and start my side work and do my section, waitressing things to get ready for the shift. So I tried doing other things. Like, by this point, it was just, like, insane. Like, I couldn't even write on a piece of paper, like, the specials. Like, it was insane. So there was a girl working there who was studying nursing, and she took my pulse, and she's like, oh, wow, like, you're super tacky. Like, and by this point, I was basically vibrating. I was shaking so hard from the anxiety. So I'm like, I'm dying. This is it. Like, this is the end for me. And my manager drove me to the emergency room because, like, I legitimately thought that I was dying. So, I remember riding in the car on the way there being like, this is it. Like, this is legitimately my last day on earth. Like, it's just, this is what it is. So I got to the hospital. My heart rate was like 160, 180. Like, it was super fucking high. It was double whatever my normal heart rate usually is. And it had gone down by that point. Like, it had actually I could feel that it had come down from when I was at the restaurant. I guess because I was like, well, I'm going to the hospital. They can help me. And I'm also about to die. So I'm just going to, accept that. And they ran all the tests and they're like, so you're having anxiety. You're having a panic attack. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, are you sure? So, on the one hand, it was kind of a relief because it's like, well, at least I don't have, like, a heart problem. At least it's just anxiety. Like, that's easy, like, that's mine. Like, I'm used to controlling my mind. I'm used to, like, telling my mind what I want it to do and not being a prisoner to it. So I can control this. Like, it's fine. But but that's not exactly what happened. So I guess I had fear of the panic attacks at that point. So like I was constantly afraid that I was gonna have another one. I was constantly afraid of it. So I got on Zoloft, I think, and I hated that. I was on that for November, January, May, like 9 months. I was on it, and I definitely took away my anxiety, but I didn't have any feelings either, and which leads into the psychic gifts. Like, as someone who's so what the drugs, the antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, what that class of drug does is it essentially turns off your connections to the divine, to like it turns off your psychic gifts because it interferes with your third eye. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional, this is just my opinion, based on my experience. So take the message if it resonates. If it doesn't, it doesn't resonate, and that's fine. Excuse me. So, it was like, I guess I've always had certain gifts. And I was watching, I'm not even gonna lie, so this is a side note, I don't even know what to call it, a warning, a whatever. I sidetrack a lot. So if that annoys you, then I'm probably not the person that you want to watch. So, recently, okay, let me get back. We will go back to that. Because that's a whole other thing. So I got off the Zoloft, and then I started having anxiety again, but it was just like, and it's so, I first started learning about esoteric, metaphysical type of topics, 2010, 2011 is when I was first really introduced to them. And, excuse me, it was, when I was a child, I saw ghosts, I saw angels, I saw other entities. I've always had, I guess, clairvoyance is what you would call it, claircognizance, that the seeing of the spirits would be like mediumship. But I've always sort of had these gifts that I assumed everyone else had as well. And I was always, I remember I would tell my mom, and I'd be like, oh, like, I was talking to this thing, like, in my closet when I was in the middle of the night, and it told me this. And she's just like, okay, well, like, I don't really know, like, what to tell you. So I was always just dubbed as having a very overactive imagination. And so I kind of just always took on that identity and said, well, maybe I just have a really vivid imagination. Like, that's possible. Maybe I just imagine things. And, not as a knock on Catholicism or any religion, but Catholicism for sure. Like, I was raised Catholic, went to private Catholic schools. My mom for sure, a little bit my sister, my grandmother definitely was very, very heavily into the Catholicism. And, if that's what works for them, that's what works for them, right? But part of that is the whole, well, if you're psychic, if you do tarot, if you do witchcraft, any of the things that Catholicism, which is a different topic entirely, the paganism, the pagan rituals, like Catholicism heavily has adopted that, but it was all like, well, that's evil, like, that's the devil, you're going to hell if you do these things. And I'm like, well, how, if I was born having these gifts and I was born like seeing these things and this has just been a part of my life, like, how is that evil if that's just who I am and how I was born? So heavy programming in terms of like, well, all of this psychic gifts, all of these gifts, all of the Reiki, all of the tarot, all of everything is evil. So if you do that, like, you're absolutely buying yourself a ticket straight to hell. Like, that is what I was raised believing. And even though a part of me knew that that wasn't truth and that wasn't the reality of how things were, I didn't really have anyone in my life that I could talk to about these things that understood, because every time I would tell, a relative, like, hey, like, I heard this, like, I saw this, blah, 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 they'd just be like, okay, Meredith, like, you're very imaginative. And it's like, yes, I have an imagination, but like, this is actually happening. So when my great grandmother died, I had a dream. She visited me in my dream. I've known, by the way, when every single one of my grandparents was going to pass away. Like, I just knew. So she visited me in my dream that night, and she told me she passed away. And she told me that she was going to be watching over me. And my mom came to wake me up the next morning, and she said, Mare died. And we called her Mare, French for grandmother. My great grandmother. Mare died last night. And I remember, like, how I was like, okay, but it's like, I already knew this. And then she, like, said it again, because I guess she's like, oh, well, like, you didn't understand, like, Mare died. So then I remember having to sort of, like, not fake be upset about it, because I was upset about it, but, like, be like, oh, no. And I remember, like, burying my face in the pillow and crying, but, like, a part of me was like, okay, but I just had this dream, and she came, and she told me she was, like, still here, like, watching out, in a different realm, but, like, still here. So that was one of my first experiences with something like that. My grandfather, another grandfather of mine, the day he passed away, I had just this intense desire or thought. It was like, I have to go see Grandpa today. And I don't know what I was doing, but by the time before I had the chance to leave my house, I got a phone call that he'd passed away. My other grandmother, for like 3 days before she had this stroke, so I kept hearing, call Gami, call Gami. And it was like, well, kind of brushing it off, like, okay, I don't know what this means, but I'll call Gami. So, like, the day that she had the stroke, it was super intense. It was like, you need to call Gami today. Like, you need to do this today. So I was, like, on my way to the store. So I'm like, I'm just going to call my grandmother and see how she is. So I called her, and, she seemed sick. She had COPD. She had a lot of health problems. But, she seemed to be in good spirits. Like, she wasn't, like, not that she was ever doom and gloom, but it was just her normal personality at that time was coming through. So I'm like, okay, so I get off the phone, and I'm like, okay, well, I've called her. So then I get a call a few hours later from my dad that she had a massive stroke and almost died from the stroke, but came back. Long story short, she never really regained full consciousness after that stroke. Like, she was here, but she wasn't fully lucid. Like, she was here and somewhere else. Like, she was just, it was the end for her. So that conversation that I had with her was the last conversation that I had with her. I mean, I spoke to her, but it wasn't, like, her mind wasn't fully here, if that makes sense. and then she passed away 2 weeks later. Also visited me the night she actually passed away in my room. She visited me, and I saw, like, I woke up randomly in the middle of the night. So I'm sleeping. I wake up, and I look, and I see this, like, rainbow, translucent, like, it was translucent, but you could see that it was, like, a figure, and it was, like, rainbow. And I woke up, and I looked at it, and then I just said, like, my mind said, that's Gami. And I was like, okay. So I was like, hey, Gami. And then I rolled over and went back to sleep. Got the call the next day. She passed away that evening. And then my last grandfather to pass away, so I hadn't seen him a whole lot. You know, our family, that's a topic for a whole nother topic as well. But basically I'd been slowly cut out of his life. So I'd moved to Minnesota. I didn't see him, you know, right when I went to Minnesota. He suddenly retired from his job, and he started having allergy problems. And he just, every time I saw him, he just looked worse and worse. And I'm like, how does a man, like, suddenly retire? He was a urologist and a surgeon. He was brilliant, you know, and he just suddenly stopped working, and just his health declined immensely. So I was in town in 2017, and this was after the anxiety started, and it was Easter, and I'd been drinking heavily that day. I was a little bit drunk, but that's not the point of the story. So I went over to their house to see him, and I hadn't seen him in a while, and he just looked so frail, and so, like, the life was just gone from him. And, you know, we were sitting there and we were taking selfies, and he kept going to be like, oh, let me see, like, he wanted to see the picture. It's like he knew, like, that was one of the last, or he knew that was, like, the last picture that we were gonna have together, and he kept wanting to check it to make sure that it was, like, a good picture. And when I went to leave, I hugged him to say goodbye, and I was just like, this is the last time I'm gonna see him. And it was, you know, like, I knew. So I was like, all right, like, compose yourself, like, it's fine, we're not gonna cry, like, in front of everyone, we're not gonna do that. So, you know, I was there, and that part of my family likes to, what do you say, talk about other members of the family and say, oh, well, look at her, she's this, just very, I don't even know the word to describe it. You know, sort of like fake nice, like, oh, we're typical narcissistic playbook, like, oh, we're so worried about Meredith, blah, 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 but it's like, you're the one causing these issues. So if you're really worried about me, maybe you should be more concerned with your actions and your behaviors. So I was getting my purse, and I'm like, I know this is the last time I'm going to see him. And I was like, you know what? I have to go give him another hug. I have to go tell him bye again, because this is the last time I'm going to see him. And, you know, I went back up to him and gave him a really big hug, and I was just like, I love you, Papa. And, you know, fought back my tears. I'm not going to cry while I was there, because I'm like, I'm not just going to break down in front of everyone, give them more ammunition, more fuel to talk about me with. And, like, as soon as we left, it was just sobbing. Like, I just knew, I'm like, this is the last time I'm gonna see him. That was the last time. That was it. And he passed away, so that was Easter in April. He passed away in uh July, the end of July, or end of June or end of July. I think it was like July 29th or something, is when he passed away. And I did see him. He came to me like that, and a few days later, like he was an orb. You know, I didn't get like the dreams with him, but I did see like an orb. Like I knew I saw an orb, and I looked at it, and I knew that it was him. So I know that he came to me after his death as well. And you know, I've had confirmed recently that he's one of my guides now, which is pretty great. So I guess back on topic. So a bunch of shit started happening around that time in my life. Like anxiety came back hardcore, and it was just I did not know what was going on. And I'm like, you know, fuck, like I have such a strong mind. I will be damned if I let something control me, least of all my own mind, right? Like this is not like no, I refuse to let my own anxiety, my own mind, basically my own mind playing tricks on me to control me in my life and what I feel like I can do. So ended up going to Florida and seeing a psychiatrist. And by the time I went to go see that psychiatrist, I was having panic attacks like every single day. And I was just like, I'm losing my mind. That's what's happening. Like I'm just losing it. And you know, the doctor, bless his heart, he was one of the most amazing doctors I've ever been to personally. He was like, all right, chill. Like, you're going through a transition phase, you're having an anxiety problem. And I'm like, okay, okay. If that's what you say, like, you're the doctor, you would know, that's what's going on. So I did get back on something that it was really, and then he's like, you know, oh, you're ADD as well. And I'm like, yes, like we know this. So, I mean, at that point I really started pulling out all the stops, I guess you would say. Like I would go for walks, I would meditate, I would do yoga, I would practice conscious breathing. Any and everything in my toolbox. Coloring, like I loved colors, so I got a coloring book and markers, and I would color when I was having anxiety, because I'm like, okay, if this is just anxiety and it's just a transition period, and that, you know, it's basically is all mental, and it's not something that is mental as in like a mental disorder that's affecting the way that I think, but like an anxiety problem that's affecting the way that I think. But if you get what I'm saying, not the same as like a bipolar disorder, or not the same. It's not like a mental, like, oh, this affects the way that you perceive reality in the world. It's anxiety, but anxiety can play tricks on your mind as well. So I'm like, okay, if I'm having anxiety, like I know I have ADD, like I've very comfortable with that label. I've been told that my whole life, so you know, yeah, sure. But then knowing that, I'm like, okay, I have to find a way to like fix myself, fix my brain. So I really started pulling out all the stops to do so. So I'm not sure. Sorry, I heard a noise. Distraction. So let's see. I made myself a notepad because, and some of these things, I guess, are topics for, or not on this. I made myself a list of topics for today. But some of the things that I'm wanting to like sidetrack on, I'm like, okay, no, that's not like the message that I'm meant to be sharing today, right now. Like that's a different message, a different video. So in 2018, I came back to New Orleans, lived with my sister, who is, I'm not gonna go into that here either. Um, Basically, a bunch of shit happened in Florida. Well, okay, we'll go into it a little bit. I was in Florida working for a company for my father that he was investing in. And he's like, oh, go down to Florida, because I was in Minnesota. He's like, go down to Florida to help them open this company and, like, just watch it, make sure everything's, like, up and up, like, just keep an eye out, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, all right, cool. So the dude that was running the company that I was roommates with also, like, nothing relationship wise at all, but just sorry, my roommates are talking, so I'm distracted. So this dude was like totally fucking insane. Basically concocted, he would like not pay me until Monday. And one week I was like, you know what? Like this is not gonna work for me because I have things that I have to go do tomorrow. I have appointments that I have to pay for, and I'm not going to wait until Monday for my paycheck. So I ended up calling my dad, and I was just like, hey, like this is not the first time this happened. Like he says he can't pay me till Monday. Can you? And it wasn't even like, oh, like ratting him out. It was like, can you loan me money until Monday because I have things I have to pay for tomorrow. So, that started the whole, that really pissed that dude off. Who, if I've ever met someone who is capable of murder, it was him. Like, he's truly, like, fucking insane. And so he decides he doesn't want me in Florida anymore after all this goes down. So he ends up concocting a story that he told my dad. So the night before he fires me, he was being ugly, being a bully, calling me names, and I told him to fuck off because I'm like, you know what, I'm tired of your shit. And he's like, oh, really? Like, got all fucking mad. And I'm like, yeah, really. So the next day, he sends me a text saying, yesterday was your last day at the office. You need to call your dad. So I call my dad, and this dude has told my dad that he fired me because I was falling asleep at my desk and doing heroin in the bathroom. And I'm just like, and you believe this? Like, you believe this nonsense? Because I just got to the point in life that I can get blood taken by a medical professional and not lose my shit. And you really think I'm in the bathroom shooting up heroin? Like, how would I even begin? I wouldn't even know how to begin to do that. And that's so far out of what I would even think to do. Which was basically just, he was putting on me, oh, she's doing this, but when in fact there was another girl in the office who was doing that. And it was just insane because it's like, do you actually believe this nonsense? Because I've never done heroin in my life. So now I suddenly am doing it in the bathroom at work. Like, I don't think those two parts of the story don't add up together. So, it was just like a whole bunch of shit. Basically, they told me to sue them for my commissions, which, my father later was agreeable to speaking with me about it in a normal way. I don't know a level-headed way, we'll say. So we were able to get that resolved. But it, I had no money. I was expecting to have this company, like, be my, like, well, this isn't my dream job, but I'll work here and just make money, and then I can, like, pursue what I want to pursue. And this company, so, I had nothing. So I'm like, well, I'll come back to New Orleans. Worked for my sister for a month as a nanny for my nephew while she was studying for the MCATs, and truly like blessed to have that time with my nephew. He's just such a bright, smart, just loving child. Like he's just like he definitely stole my heart, we'll just say. And fast forward, so I find out on my birthday this year, actually, so happy birthday to me, I guess, in a way, that the crazy one that made up all these lies about me was stealing money from the company, like funneling half of the profits into a separate bank account. And this is like what he does, like he goes around scamming people. And it was just like, like I have tried talking to you about these people, like I have tried telling you the crazy shit they've been saying and doing. I tried to warn you. I tried to say, like, I don't know what it is that is going on here, but there's something going on, and I don't trust them, and I don't trust their motives. Turns out I was exactly spot on. So all this is going on at the end of 2018, so last summer. So I come back here. My sister is very hard to live with, and I sort of came back to New Orleans with the whole my family being like, well, just come here, we'll help you get back on your feet, and then we'll help you. So I'm like, all right, so I guess I'm going back to New Orleans, which I did not want to do. Like I'm still in New Orleans, and it's not my favorite place. We'll just say I'll be leaving as soon as the option presents itself for me to do. So with all of this, so I started working, I guess after I worked with my sister, I started working for a company that sells timeshares. I'm not going to say the name of the company because I don't know if that's like illegal. Like I'm not trying to like call them out and be like, oh, this company, because it was actually a really great company in and of itself. But so started working for this company, and it was like a crash course in sales, and which I mean I've done sales many times before, so it wasn't like my first sales job by any means, but it was like I was studying persuasion, I was doing the sales, I was trying to learn more about like the nature of people, and I'm like, I feel like I can read energy. And I would tell people at work, like some of the higher ups, like I feel like I can read energy, and they're like, well, you probably can, but don't say that because people are going to think you're weird. So I'm like, okay, but like I can though. So little did I know. So like this whole time, and this whole time in this entire process from the first panic attack to, I don't know, maybe January is when like the real awakening happened. All these things that would come up in my life, I would just try to rationalize them in a very 3D physical logical sense of, well, this is just this. Like, I'm just having problems with this, or I can just read energy, or I can. So all of like my psychic gifts are coming online, and I keep trying to rationalize them as saying like, oh, well, that's just this. Like, the explanation for that is just this. That's not what this is. This is just this. And like, I need to figure out how to get my imagination under control, or whatever. Like, just very, very resistant to the whole thing. But it wasn't so much resistance as like, no, I don't want to hear it. No, I don't want to know it. It was like, I didn't feel like I had anyone that I could talk to about these things without being labeled crazy or irrational, like, or evil because of my upbringing. Like, I didn't feel like I had anyone that I could actually confide in and say, like, I feel like I have psychic gifts. Because even if you go to, a doctor and you're like, I feel like this, like, they're gonna be like, well, like, you might be crazy, like, because the medical system is not designed, like, if you go to a doctor, which, I mean, the doctor I went to in Florida, like, he was amazing. But you're not, and maybe he did know, maybe he didn't, I don't know. I haven't really spoken to him since then, although I would like to reconnect with him. You know, when you go into any kind of medical establishment, especially with panic attacks, I must have taken myself to the hospital 10 times, the emergency room 10 times over the course of 2 or 3 years, thinking I was dying, having panic attacks. Like, even though I knew that it was a panic attack, like, it was still like, well, what if it's something else? Like, and every time they ran all my blood work, they did all the tests, and they were like, you're fine, it's just anxiety. And I'm like, okay. And then it was like, you need to get this shit under control, because, like, you can't just keep going to the fucking hospital every time you have a panic attack. Like, you need to learn how to deal with this shit. And you know, you don't go into the establishment and be like, I've suddenly started having panic attacks. Like, I'm having panic attacks and having all these things happen. And people are going to say, like, oh, you know what, you're probably going through an awakening. Like, you're probably realizing some things about life. Like, the systems aren't in place to be able to recognize, like, okay, this is what this is. So I guess I just sort of, like, got slapped in the face with it around January of this year. And I'm like, it was like, oh, okay, so this stuff is real. Like, it's not just my imagination. Like, this is actually, this is all real. Like, okay. So then it kind of started clicking and making sense. Like, okay, so all these times that I was, like I was feeling the energies of the planet. Oh, and then so I started learning about this stuff in, like, 2011. And it's like I learned about it, and it's like I knew that these energies were, like, coming into the planet, and I knew that, like, there was, like, a mass awakening happening, like, on the planet, and, like, I knew that. Like, I knew that on some level, but it didn't fully land in my body that I was also going to be going through that. Like, I'm like, oh, this is going to be happening to everyone, but it didn't hit me that it was happening to me as well until I was literally smacked in the face with it. And it's like, okay, so this all makes sense now. So then it's like, okay, so I'm not actually crazy. Not that I thought that I was, but it's like, okay, like, there's actually a very logical explanation for this, that, like, you're going through an awakening. And, you know, it makes you do, like, a total life review. So I have, yes, total life evaluation. Like, every part of your life, you're like, do I want to keep working at the same job? Do I want to keep doing the same things? Do I want to continue down the path that I'm on? Like, what is actually, why am I here? What is my purpose? Why am I here? And this is something that I'm still figuring out. Like, it's something I'm still working on discerning in its entirety what my purpose is. So me coming online today and having this video, like, I'm still learning. I'm still not 100% clear about what it is that I'm here to do. But I think part of what I'm here to do is sharing my story. So that's what I'm here to do. And I guess I will be divinely led again to share different messages. But I guess the whole point of this was, so sorry, I'm looking at my phone because I made a comment. So I recently started following this woman called, or who's, I don't know if that's right. This woman called, yeah, that's her name. Okay, her name is Leah Steele. I don't know if that's what, well, that's what she's called. I don't know what I'm doing with this. So I've been watching her videos, and she had one on clair empathy. So I'm, like, listening to it this morning, and I'm like, or clairsentience, and I'm like, wow, like, this is me. Like, these are the gifts that I have. So I'm reading Um, I don't know. Like, basically, I've always definitely clairvoyant, definitely have claircognizance, um, the potential for mediumship because I saw things as a child, precognition, retrocognition, um, like reading energy. You know, it's like all these things that I was trying to put like a very logical, rational, like this is just what it is on my spiritual gifts. That it's like, okay, like that's not actually what it is at all. It's a spiritual gift. But I guess the point of me coming online is to talk about that, but to also, you know, there's a lot going on planetarily right now, and we're all being given the choice whether we want to evolve and transcend um, all of the limiting beliefs and programming and all these things that have been put in place to keep us like in a container. Um, like you have the choice to evolve and keep and work through that and heal and grow and continue to I feel like I've gotten to the point now. I've been working very hard on myself these past 9 months. 2019 is a year of completions. It's a 9 personal year for me. I'm a Virgo sun, Scorpio moon, Scorpio rising. So like this last Mercury retro in Scorpio was just like, you need to get your shit together. Like there is no more time for you to be fucking around on bullshit. But so for the past, this year has been a lot of let's heal this, like a lot of self-worth, self-value, self-love stuff coming up, saying like, well, why do I keep repeating these self-sabotaging patterns? Why do I keep putting myself in situations that are not for my highest and greatest good? And it comes down to worthiness and like what you feel like you deserve to have, what you feel like you're worthy of having. It really comes down to that. So I've healed an immense amount of that this year, and I haven't done much else because I've been so focused on my healing. But then it's like, we're entering a time where like 2020, like that's gonna be really like the portal and like the deciding factor. Like, are you coming with us? Are you going to start using your spiritual gifts? Are you going to start embodying what you're here to do? Or are you going to stay asleep and stay in the Matrix? And if anyone follows Dolores Cannon, the New Earth, and I read about this in 2014, and it was kind of like, whoa, like this is crazy. Like I don't really know. Like I believe it, like it makes sense, but like I don't have any reference on it. Like I hadn't experienced it, so I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. But it's becoming more clear that people are having the choice. Like, do you want to live a divinely inspired life, or do you want to stay stuck? And I was listening to a live call last night about this, and it kind of like like freaked me out. And it's like, I need to get my shit together now. Like, it doesn't matter if I don't know my message, and it doesn't matter if like I don't know my purpose. I have to start sharing. Like, I don't have the luxury anymore to just sit back and wait I don't even have a website. Like, I don't have products. I don't have a website. I don't have anything. I don't even know like what I'm doing, but I do know that I am being led to share my message. And it's like we're running out of time. I'm a procrastinator. I wait until the last minute to do things, so it's fitting that it's like, oh, I'm like right here. I'm at the point where it's like now it's getting serious, and I'm like, okay, well now I feel like I've finally healed my stuff, and like I'm not done growing, I'm not done healing, I'm not done with any of that. But it's like the time has come. Like, if you are feeling the call, and if you are feeling like you are meant to do something bigger on this planet than what you have been doing, like you need to start taking action on that now. Like you need to start doing whatever that is that you think that you are here to do, because 2020 is a portal, or the it's not, I mean, there's a portal, like there are plenty of portals, but like 2020 as a whole is like the determining, like, are you going to evolve or are you going to stay where you are? And based on just like dreams, visions, things I've read, just information that has come into my consciousness that about the future, if you do not choose to deal with your shit and look in the mirror and hold yourself accountable and say, like, this is where I'm fucking up my own life, like this is me, you know, everything is a choice. So in part of my, I guess the beginning of my like slap in my face part of my awakening, it was like, okay, and this is true for everyone, you know, you don't, what I have control over is my thoughts, my words, my feelings, my actions. I don't have control over anyone else. I can choose how I react. I can choose what to think about. I can choose the kind of impact that I want to have on other people. That's a choice that I get to make. I don't get to choose how, you know, how other people treat me, but I do get to choose how I respond and how I choose to go out and have an impact. Like, that is my choice. And, you know, it kind of, I totally lost my train of thought because I'm thinking about this Toastmasters speech that I did about choices. And thinking about, you know, I mean, basically, like, if you, and this kind of goes into, I guess, law of attraction, if you want to call it that, that, you know, thoughts create things. So if you're spending your time thinking about positive things and positive thoughts, like, that's what you're going to bring to you. If you spend your time thinking about rehashing old situations and saying, like, well, this is, you know, this is what happened in the past, and just thinking about that, you're going to bring more of that to you until you learn your lessons and until you like really decide to integrate it. But okay, I remember. So, and part of that is like, you have the choice. It's looking at yourself and saying, like, okay, wow, so like, if the only thing I have control over is myself, then that means like I have control of myself. Like, I am the only one who can make decisions for me. I'm the only one that will love myself the way that I feel I deserve to be loved. I'm the only one that will take care of me the way I feel that I deserve to be taken care of. I'm the only person that is going to put me first because it's me. Like, you're the only person that is always going to be there for and with you. Hands down. And, you know, it's like looking at yourself and being like, wow, like, I've had this idea of myself that I was doing really well, and then it's like, you don't even realize, like, this self-sabotage, you know, like, by continuing to repeat patterns and continuing to do the same thing over and over and over and over and over and expect different results. Like, that's how you stay stuck. So, like, you have to choose, basically, like, the choice is yours, which was the title of my Toastmaster speech. But, I mean, people that are like, you know, I don't know if you're going through an awakening, or if you have, or if you're still trying to like figure all of it out, like, as I still am. Like, I'm at the point where it's like, I'm gonna learn as I do, because there's never going to be a time where I feel like I have all the answers. And if I keep waiting for that time to feel like I have all the answers, I'm going to miss the boat. And I'm not going to be able to get back on the boat because I've been dilly-dallying. So, I mean, people that are, you know, feeling this and really like, you know, really kind of going through the same thing. It's like, if you think that like you might be going through an awakening and you think that you're being called to do something different, it's like, now is the time to act on it. Like, now is the time that you need to say, like, I'm gonna do this, like, and just decide that you're going to do it and work on it. And You know, basically, you're not crazy. Like, these things are real. It's not just your imagination. It's not just a, a daydream. Like, if especially so, like, and this is talked about a lot, like, I've always thought that everyone had these gifts. I've always thought that anyone has these abilities because I have them. So I've always assumed that everyone has them. And then it's like, oh, okay, so like most people like don't have these things. So like when it's like, oh, don't say you can read energy because people are going to say that you're weird. Like that's because people don't have these abilities. And it's kind of like, well, but like, because I think that my abilities are as strong as they are because even though I wouldn't talk about with people my spiritual abilities, I never really like let them go entirely. Like I was always getting visions, clairvoyance. Like that's never gone away, my whole life. And then just the awakening. But I thought it was imagination. So it's like putting the pieces together and being like, oh, okay, like that wasn't imagination. That was, it's a psychicness, I guess. Psychic gifts, spiritual gifts, whatever you want to call them. But where was I going with that? I'm getting distracted by noises. Just getting towards. Okay, I had a point. I swear, this happens to me so much. I don't know. I've literally drawn a complete blank. So, if I remember, I remember. Like, I don't have, like, a specific, like, this is what I'm talking about today. I made notes. So, like, as I started to say at the beginning of the feed, like, I don't know at this point what my message is and what I'm meant to be doing. Or, I guess sharing my message is just sharing my truth and, like, things that have happened. And if people can resonate with that and relate to it, and if I, me coming online and just doing this one video, which is, like, barely even scratching the surface of all the things that I've experienced, especially in the last year, like, if that helps one person, then it has helped some. If it, basically, like, you're not crazy. Like, even if you don't have anyone to talk to about it, even if you don't have a support system, or you don't know, like, who to talk to, and you're like, I just have an imagination, like, whatever. Like, no, like, if you're being led to this video, for one, you're being led to this video for a reason. And maybe that reason is to be like, oh, I'm actually going through an awakening. Like, that's actually what's happening. Like, oh, shit. And it can be scary, but it's as scary and as fearful as it is, it's also one of the most beautiful experiences you'll ever have in your life. And yeah, so I got way off topic, I think. I think I stayed on topic a little bit, but I also got way off topic. Is there anything else I should be saying today? Ground. So if you feel like you're going through this, spend some time outside, like go put a blanket on the grass and like lay there. Like if you live in a climate that is not snowy, go like put a blanket on the ground and lay and like just sit under the trees, or go sit under a tree. I was walking yesterday. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago? I don't know. 2 days ago. I was going for a walk and I walked past this guy just sitting underneath a tree meditating. And I was like, that is so awesome. Like, that, you're amazing. But that, those kinds of things, like, you have to find ways to help yourself, basically. And like, I don't have all the answers. I don't expect to ever have all the answers. Like, that's not the point. The point is to continue to improve yourself and get better and work on yourself. Like, that's the point. To continuously, to never stop improving. Just always be improving upon yourself forever, like until the day that you die. Because, people that lose that, people who stop creating and learning and discovering and working on themselves, like that's when people die, because they don't have anything to do. Like their consciousness or mind is not here. It's, well, this sucks. And you are what you think becomes your reality, and what you think you are. So if you're holding on to limiting beliefs about yourself that affect your just your way of life, like you're the one making the choice to say, I'm going to give my power away to this limiting belief because it makes me feel safe. And even though you're not comfortable in that place, it's like, well, I just have like this, like, oh, I'm going to assign this label to myself, and this is what it is, and like that's just who I am. But if you're, you do have the power of choice, free will, like that is this planet. Like you do have the power in any moment to say, like, no, I'm going to take my power back. Like, I'm going to decide what my life is going to be like. I'm going to make the choice to heal myself and heal these limiting beliefs and heal these things within myself that keep me from fulfilling my full potential. Like, you have the power to say that. Like, even if you're going through an awakening and shit's really hard, like, you have the power to be like, you know what, like, I'm gonna just, like, say some prayers, do some meditations, go ground, go for a run, like, whatever you have to do, and be like, I know that I'm safe, I know that I'm protected, and just trust that everything will be okay. Because if you are being called to this, if you are having an awakening, if you are feeling the call to, like, do something more with your life, it's for a reason, and you wouldn't be led to it and brought through it if you couldn't handle it. So, as crazy and messy and just tumultuous and totally fucking, like, uprooting as it is to, like, go through something like this that makes you question every single part of yourself. And then it's like, well, is this even what I want? And then when you get deeper into that, it's like, well, how am I fucking myself up? Like, how, like, it's just a whole thing. Like, you have to know that, like, you wouldn't be called to do something, A, if you couldn't handle it, and B, you absolutely can handle it, and C, like, the crazy, like, oh shit, like, part of it doesn't last forever. And although it can be very disjointing and disorienting to go through something like that, and especially if you feel like you don't have anyone to talk to, which is a big part of the awakening process, like, it's a big part of feeling disconnected and like, I am totally alone. No one understands what I'm going through. I can't talk to anyone about this because no one else is going through it. No one else understands. I'm just going to be labeled as crazy or demonic or whatever other things. Like, I can't talk to anyone about this. Like, and that's a huge part, like, of the whole thing. Like, that's a huge, like, the disconnection, the feeling like you're totally alone. But part of the point of that phase is to get you to a point where you're trusting in yourself and you're trusting in the divine and you're trusting in your heart and you're saying, you know what, like, I'm going to listen, I'm going to tune in here and I'm going to listen to what my heart is telling me that I need to do. And even if it doesn't make any sense, like, it could be just insane. I mean, okay. And I do want to also say, I mean, if you're, having, like, really negative thoughts, like, obviously don't follow those. But if you're calming your mind, going into your heart, and you're like, for some reason I'm being led to, like, go get a pizza from this place today. And you don't even eat pizza, but you're like, I kind of want a pizza. And this is a totally random example, by the way. But, like, I'm supposed to go here. Like, maybe you're supposed to be in that place at that time. There's a reason and a purpose for everything. And, or maybe you go and you're like, oh, like, you see, like, someone you haven't seen forever, and then it's like, oh shit, and then, like, now y'all are friends, y'all are reconnecting, and, like, it's amazing and it's wonderful. Like, once you learn to tune in and listen to your heart, even if, like, the messages you're getting, and it's like the way that you're being led into, like, or guided towards don't make any rational, logical sense at all, follow that, because it's coming to you for a reason, and it is, there's a purpose for it, even if you don't see the purpose, even if you never see the purpose. Like, so what if, like, you go into this random place and you're like, well, nothing happened to me, like, I didn't reconnect with anyone, like, I didn't, like, you know, nothing happened, like, whatever, why was I, like, sent to come here? Like, maybe you smiled at someone and it changed their whole day or their whole week. Like, you don't know the effect that you don't know sometimes why you're being called to do certain things, but there is a reason, even if you cannot see it. And I'm getting way off topic, way off tangent. At this point, I don't even know, like, what this, it was supposed to be about spiritual gifts, but then I'm like, well, I'm going to talk about, like, my awakening and my anxiety and how I've overcome that, which is probably a topic for a whole nother video. So this is just, like, this is my first time making a video in a while, and I definitely didn't have an outline of what I wanted to talk about. I had some talking points, but I really didn't have, like, any goals for this video other than coming online and making a video and speaking as I was guided to come and do, you know. And I asked at the beginning, like, okay, please just let me, like, talk, give me what the information I need to know that I need to deliver, because I don't even know, like, what I'm supposed to be talking about. Like, in my mind, I'm like, I still have so much to do, I still have so much to figure out, I still have so much that, like, needs to happen before I can, like, step into, like, my purpose work. And then it's like, maybe not, you know, like, it's just this realization in the past couple of days, like, you know, there's never a perfect time. I'm never going to be 100% ready. I'm never going to feel like, you know what, yes, now I feel like I have enough knowledge that, like, it's time. Now is the time. Like, if you keep waiting for that, you're never going to get there. You have to, at some point, make the decision to be like, I'm just going to do this, and, like, I don't know what's going to come of it, but, like, I'm going to do it. With this video, I don't know what's going to come of this video. I don't have any, like, goals or intentions, or I did make the intention that everyone who needed to hear this message would find this video. So if you found this video and you feel like you needed to hear this message, like, wonderful. That means that it worked. But other than that, I didn't have any intentions. So, you know, I'm definitely going to start doing more videos again. And I'm not sure if they're going to be in this format, if they're going to be in a different format. I do want to figure out how to do lives. I intended to do a live, but shenanigans with the iPad. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely going to be putting out more videos as I'm guided to do so, because I feel like that's a big part of me stepping into my purpose work, which I don't even know what it is at the moment. You know, it's like, it's amazing how sometimes we have the ability to look into other people and say, like, oh, like, this is where you're fucking up. Like, this is what you need to do. Like, this is what's going to make you happy. Like, this is how you should, like, change your own shit. Like, this is how to handle your shit. But when it comes to yourself, it's like, you know, like, well, what would I be good at doing? What do I like to do? I don't know. So that's kind of where I am right now. I do know that in some form or fashion that I'm meant to speak and do something like that. I do know that is part of my purpose. I don't know about what. I don't know if I'm supposed to do coaching. I don't know if I'm supposed to do energy work. Like, the specifics of what I am here to do have not yet been revealed to me. We'll just say that. So this is really just the first step in saying, like, okay, I'm listening. I'm ready to step into my mission, whatever that is. And I'm hoping that by recording this video and putting it out there, that the next step will present itself to me. And some of the things I've talked about, I probably do need to come back and do separate videos about. I'm a very in the moment kind of person, so it's kind of just, oh, well, we'll talk about this today. Like, let's get on here and let's talk about this. And, like, oh, there's a helicopter, and then this and this and this. And that's just kind of how I am. So, I mean, if you look at like my past videos, like the videos from years and years and years ago that I got on, I'm like, oh, like these are like the steps for being an entrepreneur. These are like the things you should do to like master your success working from home, or just stupid shit, really. But I'm like, oh, this is like purposeful. This is like what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, those are only 15 minutes long because I wrote out beforehand. I'm like, okay, you're going to talk about this, you're going to talk about this, you're going to talk about this. And then I talked about it and I'm like, okay, that's it. Like, I've said everything I've come here to say, and like that's it. So I'm sure I'll do a multitude of formats. All my videos probably won't be like super long like this, but maybe they will. I don't really know. Probably not all of them. Some of them for sure. So, if you have enjoyed this video today, please like, subscribe, hit the bell notification. Sorry, roommates. Yeah, like, subscribe, and I'll see y'all back here in the future with more content. So now I have to figure out how to turn this off. And thank you for watching the video today. I hope it was helpful. I hope you learned some information about yourself, or just maybe got, if nothing else, reassurance and clarity, and like, okay, like Meredith is experiencing this too, so like it's not just me. Like, whatever your reason for being brought here today, I hope you got something out of it. And I hope to see you back here soon. Bye.